Board of Administration meeting, please. So we move to agenda item 10B, Enterprise Performance Reporting. Ms. Hutchins.
All right. Good morning, Mr. President and members of the board. Sabrina Hutchins, CalPERS team member. I'm joined with members of our executive team to present to you the fourth quarter review of our Enterprise Performance Report. This report represents the second year reporting cycle of our current strategic plan for 17 through 22. What we want to share with you today will be focused on those indicators that are either at risk or off target. Before we jump in, a little background. This framework that the system works within aligns to our foundation, which captures our mission, our vision, and our values, and in the simplest terms represents who we are and what we want to achieve. This includes our strategic plan goals, as well as our outcome measures, which highlight our high-level operational expectations. Depicted on this slide is a high-level visual of our enterprise performance management system, which involves the development, implementation, monitoring, and reporting of performance metrics in support of our mission. The intent of this system is to reinforce CalPERS' desire to be transparent and accountable in support of these strategic goals and operational expectations. As the system does incorporate a significant amount of data and information, you do have the full details of both the strategy and the operational reports within your agenda item attachments. However, the focus of our discussion will highlight the strategic side of the house. A high-level visual of this status can be found within Attachment A, which is a view of our strategic plan alignment map. This will show you the connection between our goals, objectives, measures, and initiatives. Focusing again on the strategy side of the house, this map reflects an overlay of status indicators of red, yellow, and green, which indicate what is on target, at risk, or off target. Additional details for each of these indicators can be found within Attachment C and D. Our review and analysis of fourth quarter information identified that 13 of our strategic measures did refresh with new data, and those that are on target are related to our stakeholder assessment survey, access to health care, overall health status, opioid dose and duration, our CEM pension complexity and technology capability score, as well as our compliance program maturity assessment. These are all in the green. We will speak to those that are at risk in just a moment. Of our 34 business plan initiatives, the majority are in the green. We have one off target, and we'll speak to that in just a moment. As of the close of this fiscal year, we have completed 9 business plan initiatives. Those completed are related to our actuarial valuation system, phase 2 of our enterprise business continuity plan, 3 healthcare initiatives, increasing enterprise risk awareness, our strategic risk measures, talent outreach activities, and enhancing succession planning. You will also have the indicators related to our information security office presented to you within closed session today. So as members of our executive team speak to those indicators that are at risk or off target, the goal is to provide you with the root cause of the status, as well as any constraints and mitigation strategies currently underway. Keep in mind, this report is status as of June 30th of this year and represents those items in the forefront of our strategic priorities. So with that, I will turn this over to Leanna to start us off within the healthcare affordability goal.
Thank you, Sabrina. Leanna Bailey-Crimmins, CalPERS team member. Both performance measures that I will be reporting on today are generated from the annual CalPERS Health Satisfaction Survey. In 2018, an anonymous survey was sent out to 24,200 members. And the 2 health measures that are deemed at risk are the self-reporting related to diabetes management and timely access to mental health services. So for diabetes self-management, our survey question basically asks members who are identified as having diabetes whether they check their blood glucose at least once a day. Our target is to have 70% of our members be managing to report yes, and that they're managing those levels. Over the past 4 years, you will see that the trend line has been going down. And in 2018, our metric is now deemed at risk, and we're only at 51.3%. The CalPERS team suggests revising the diabetes question because many members with diabetes may not be clinically required to check their blood glucose levels at least once a day because their doctors believe they have their type 2 diabetes well controlled. And because of this and the way the question is being asked, we believe that it may be creating a sampling error. When we're trying to make sure that people are managing, but if they don't have to do the daily check, and we're asking if they do, it may be just creating this a false positive. So, as a reminder to you and to our members, CalPERS members copay covers diabetes self-management and education and training, and when medically necessary, finger sticks and testing supplies are also covered as a part of that copay. The CalPERS health team will continue to work with our health plan partners to improve diabetes self-monitoring through disease management and member education and outreach. The second at-risk measure is regarding access to mental health services. And yesterday, during the Pension and Health Benefits Committee meeting, you did receive a presentation for Dr. Julia Logan. Our question on our survey basically asks, in the last 12 months, how often was it easy to get the treatment or counseling you needed through your health plan? Our target is 80%, but we are currently at risk because we're at 65.8%. We believe the root cause is that the current survey question is regarding treatment or counseling is vague and may not qualify as a covered event or covered benefit. For example, health plans do not cover marriage counseling. So CalPERS would like to basically work with the plans and focus on what qualifies as a mental disorder. And based on the board direction given yesterday at the Pension and Health Benefits Committee, the health team will be working with Smart Care California and others to determine the best way to collect this metric. That concludes my report on those two measures, and I'm available for any questions.
Okay, no questions. Proceed.
Move to reduce complexity.
Thanks. Michael Cohen. Good morning, members. So we touched on this a little bit in the July offsite, but let me come back to it. There are multiple measures in the organization where we're trying to get at something very similar in terms of how do you measure efficiency in the organization. This one in particular is targeted at the CEM administrative cost per member. So you'll recall CEM is kind of a standardized way that we can compare ourselves to other pension funds around the country. You see the goal, the black line in front of you is to go down by 2% a year. There's really two main factors that cause us to go the opposite direction, increasing by 2% instead. First is sort of the denominator in the equation, which is the total number of members within CalPERS. As you've heard this week, we have a fairly mature member base, and so it's not going to swing dramatically from one year to the next. Membership grew by 0.3% in this period of measurement. So what would happen if we had a really nice increase in membership is the cost per member would go down, assuming all of our costs stayed the same. However, with a relatively flat membership base, basically all of your cost increases are just going to increase your cost per member. And that's really what happened here, is that the vast majority of the costs from 16-17 to 17-18 were based on the collectively bargained pay increases for our employees here at CalPERS. So you see the trend line is going in the wrong direction compared to the measure, which I would say is likely to continue into the foreseeable future, absent sort of a push from this board to make dramatic changes in the CalPERS operations. Unless you're going to basically reduce our employee costs by more than the negotiated wage increases, you're likely to continue to see cost increases going forward. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
See no questions. Thank you for the report.
Good morning, Doug Hoffner, CalPERS team member. The item I'll be speaking about is the Leadership Competencies Measurement Tool. We talked about this at the offsite in July as well. Just a little background, we had in the last budget a proposal to go seek a new human resources management system. We were unfortunately had to cancel that RFP in early June of this year after failing to get to terms and conditions with 2 different vendors over a period of time. So what we've been able to do since then, which has really thrown this into the red, is look at the leadership competencies we've developed as an organization, embedded those in all of the job duty statements and job bulletins and advertisements, and really trying to incorporate through all the parts of the organization in terms of the expectations we have of every, not just leader, but every employee and team member in this organization. So we've done that. We did develop a small pilot within the operational technology branch. There's approximately 5 of us at the leadership level that looked at a tool that was internally developed. We're looking to roll that out in the current 1920 fiscal year within the organization, and we don't currently have plans in the current budget for that new system. And so based upon the late cancellation, we're going to reevaluate kind of the work that we're doing in that arena. But I wanted to sort of highlight some of the things we have done. The other piece includes, union notification related to competencies across the organization for all of the team members, as I mentioned, and then looking to roll out a communication plan to the affected individuals as this will roll into performance and development plans across the organization. Happy to take any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you for the report. No questions?
All right, very good. Then if no other questions about our process, we will see you again in November for our first quarter report of the new fiscal year.
Okay, thank you for the good work. Okay. We now move to state and federal legislation update. Mr. Brown.
All right. Good morning, Mr. President and board members again. State and federal ledge update. I have a number of things to update you on, but I will try to get through them quickly. First, on the state side, the legislature has returned from their summer recess, and the end of session is September 13th, so we have about 3.5 weeks for them to get through their business. For our 2 sponsored bills, first AB 672 by Assemblymember Cervantes has been signed by the governor. This bill makes clarifying changes to working after retirement rules for disability retirees. And then our housekeeping bill, SB 782, is currently on the assembly floor and is waiting for a vote on the floor before going to the governor. One other bill I just want to touch on, since it got a lot of discussion in June, was AB 1611 by Assemblymember Chu that deals with balanced billing. The author has decided to make this a 2-year bill. The sticking point is the reimbursement to the hospitals by the health plans for that out-of-network care. So we'll continue to watch that bill and bring it to you next year if necessary. Moving to the federal update, I first want to report that in July, the Trump administration dropped their proposal to eliminate the safe harbor protection for pharmacy rebates. I discussed this with you a number of times over the last several months. Besides submitting comment letters, we did visit with Speaker Pelosi's office and with the HHS to communicate them our concerns of this plan would impact our premiums for our retirees. So we're glad to see that they dropped that proposal. Congress is on summer recess, and they will come back in the middle of September. Before they left, you may have seen that they did, the House passed the excise tax bill, or the repeal of the excise tax, 419 to 6. Despite that, the Senate is not planning to take it up. Senator Grassley has already come out and said that they have other pressing matters, and since this tax doesn't go into effect until 2022, he's going to go ahead and spend time on other things. And one of those things, though, he is looking at reducing drug prices. Both the Senate Finance Committee and the Senate Help Committee have passed out legislation. The Senate Help Committee passed a bill called the Lower Healthcare Costs Act, a bipartisan healthcare reform bill led by Chairman Alexander that includes provisions designed to end surprise medical billing, increase transparency in medical care pricing, and increase competition in the prescription drug marketplace. The Senate Finance Committee has passed out a bill called the Prescription Drug Pricing Reduction Act. This bipartisan bill by Chairman Grassley and Ranking Member Wyden is meant to lower Medicare and Medicaid prescription drug costs through various strategies. The discussion is that they'll kind of merge these bills and there'll be one large packet to vote for in the fall. So we'll be looking to work with our new Chief Health Director on how best to position CalPERS and weigh in on those on that measure. And then moving to Moving to investments, I just want to highlight a couple opportunities that we had in July. First, the House Financial Services Subcommittee had a hearing on building a sustainable and competitive economy. James Andrews was able to testify in that hearing and focused on supporting enhanced ESG disclosures to improve transparency and reduce risk. This was important because this is the first time that Congress has had a hearing on ESG disclosures. So this gives CalPERS the opportunity with a seat at the table to discuss ESG disclosures going forward. It's not likely anything will happen in this Congress around these bills, but obviously this is a long-term discussion, and we've established a seat at the table. And then following that, in July, Don Pons participated in an SEC-hosted roundtable discussing the impact of short-term quarterly reporting rules on capital markets and proposals that could encourage more long-termism by management. Don stressed the value of the 10K as a tool that promotes transparency, disciplines management, provides valuable information that is subject to a high level of rigor, and promotes long-term growth. He also encouraged the SEC to streamline the process to minimize the impact on reporting companies while also integrating ESG disclosures into that framework. And then lastly, I just quickly point out these bills are listed in your documents, but we did send letters in July in support of 4 health bills. Senate Bill S 340 by Senator Patrick Leahy, the Creating, Restoring Equal Access to Equivalent Samples Act, also known as the CRATES Act. Senate Bill 1140 by Senator Tina Smith, the Protecting Access to Biosimilars Act. Senate Bill 1169 by Senator Cory Gardner, the Ensuring Timely Access to Generics Act. And then finally, Senate Bill 64 by Senator Amy Klobuchar, the Preserve Access to Affordable Generics and Biosimilars Act. So you can see a theme there all around generics and biosimilars and trying to reduce drug costs. And with that, I will stop and answer any questions about my comments or anything that's in your agenda or in the board material.
Send no questions. Thank you very much, Danny. Okay, we're going to move to summary of board direction. Ms. Frost.
I noted one from Mr. Fechner, and that is to look at the popularity of some of the classes that are being offered through the Employer Education Forum and see if we can accommodate the requests that are coming in on those filled classes.
Okay, thank you. Now we will go to public comment. We have a few requests to speak, and I'm going to call the first 2 up, Charity Bowman and Gabby Ardainty.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, my name is Charity Bowman, and I am an advocate of the Me Too movement. I am here on behalf of many CalPERS employees, but one in particular whose story you seem to be blatantly ignoring. I'm representing one of the victims in the J.J. Jelencic sexual harassment case, where he was found guilty by the administrative law judge Terry L. Block 10 years ago. The trauma incurred by JJ's predatory behavior is still so real and present that JJ's victims cannot physically be here in front of you to tell their story. I'm here on behalf of a woman who has been so stressed that she has been physically ill because this man may be reelected. This is not a victimless crime. As the board, your lack of action to protect the men and women of CalPERS is infuriating. And I am angry and so disappointed because I shouldn't have to be here saying this. We shouldn't still be fighting this fight. This man needs to be held accountable and does not deserve a seat on this board. These victims are having to relive their trauma, and this is why victims don't speak out, because you have shown that it doesn't matter. While this sexual harassment case was being investigated and after there was a guilty verdict, this predator was being rewarded by maintaining a position on the board and his position in investments with full salary and benefits. So the tax-paying Californians are struggling to pay their bills, and this board basically rewarded this man with essentially a paid vacation. Jason Perez, in the August 2018 elections, you said, "I am a certified good guy. I'll hold the people accountable." Why aren't you holding Jelensik accountable? You're endorsing him on his website. Your job was to protect and serve. So who are you protecting and whose interests are you serving? Margaret Brown, you are also endorsing JJ on his website. And I urge you to reconsider. Endorse us, the men and women of CalPERS. I am here to empower these victims. The women in this room are here to hold you accountable. And we will continue to show up, and we will grow in number until we are heard. You have repeatedly failed the men and women of CalPERS, and we will not give up until we see results, and we are here to hold you accountable. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next.
Gabriela Urdaneta, CalPERS team member and advocate of the Me Too movement. In continuation of my colleague's previous testimony, we call on this board to recall all monies dispensed to Mr. Jelensik as reparation to California taxpayers from the date of his guilty verdict until his retirement in March 2019. Recall and revoke any and all retirement benefits acquired from the date of his guilty verdict until the date of his retirement in March 2019. Revoke Mr. Jelensik's eligibility to serve on this board effective immediately on the basis of demonstrated conduct that is not in alignment with the sworn duty of this board to act in the best interest of its members and employers. Prohibit Mr. Jelensik from being permitted on this campus on the basis that victims should not need to live in fear that they will be further targeted by their aggressor. Issue formal and personal apologies to all of the victims of Mr. Jelensik's sexual predatory behavior. Provide monetary compensation for all personal injuries associated with the trauma these victims endured at the hand of their aggressor, Mr. Jelensik. Develop and implement policies that would prevent any one person from being above the rule of law. Develop and implement policies that would prohibit any individual who has been previously found guilty of sexual harassment from being eligible to serve on this board. It's been said that all that is necessary for evil to prevail is for good people to do nothing. And so we implore the good people of this board to take a stand and to do something. What we're asking is not too much to ask for. Holding peddlers of sexual harassment accountable is not too much to ask for. Coming to work without the fear of being preyed upon is not too much to ask for. Governing with integrity is not too much to ask for. It is imperative that this board sends a clear message that male privilege is not a get-out-of-jail-free card. It is for these reasons that we ask that this board use its full might and weight to take firm stand on crimes against women in the workplace. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We do have a couple of board members wanting to make some comments. Ms. Taylor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Ladies, I want to thank you very much for coming forward. I hear you. I'm not sure what we can do, but I will work with Ms. Frost and our chief counsel to see. I get your demands. I'm not sure that in an election we can do anything about that, and I wasn't here when this behavior took place, but I hear what you're saying. I understand what these women are going through, and I don't condone this behavior in any way, shape, or form. Again, I will confer with Ms. Frost and our board members to see if there's something that we can do to take action. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Perez?
These are serious allegations, and you said he was convicted, or I'm sorry, you said he was held to be
Found guilty.
found guilty
Their
in
verdict.
a ALJ or in a criminal court
I'm sorry, what was that?
through the administrative law judge.
Yes.
Yes.
And do we have access to that investigation or the report?
I will look into it, but as board members, you would have access.
And I'm not, by no means am I minimizing what you're saying happened, but I'm a facts guy, so I'd have to see facts in order to
Absolutely.
make anything.
Mr. Miller?
Yeah, I also want to thank you for your courage in being here and bringing this and to the victims. I think there are serious legal constraints on what we as board members and we as a board can do. I've raised this before in a broader sense in terms of us not really having the tools, constitutionally or otherwise, to deal with failures of good behavior or even egregious or criminal behavior. And that is something that I'm hoping in the long term gets remedied. But what I would say to you is, for example, for my part, I and I know others on this board are supporting and endorsing Henry Jones. And that is a major, if not the most significant part of my reason for doing that, beyond just, Henry's experience, his knowledge, his commitment. He's been steadfast and a solid leader, but his integrity is peerless. And I think the message I would have too is there's not much that we can do. There's not a real role to play. But where there is something that we can and could do, I would certainly support Ms. Taylor in working to see what we could do and suggest that maybe your communication to those others who have endorsed Mr. Jelensik might be a better place to try to communicate and have some dialogue.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes, I would just gently recommend to the board that we not get drawn into the electoral debate. You can obviously address the comments, but I would need to stay away from any kind of electioneering or anything that could be interpreted that way. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Middleton?
Yes. I want to thank you for coming in. What we know for every individual who speaks up, there are dozens of individuals who are fearful and unable to come forward and speak up. I will join with Ms. Taylor in investigating what are all of the legal options that are available to this board. I do believe those are limited in terms of the number, but that investigation obviously has not started yet. Again, thank you for coming forward and for making your voices heard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Pascal Rogers?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, ladies, for being here. I know that it's not easy. Please know that I stand with all people who feel like their voices aren't heard. And I would like to join my colleagues to see whatever we can do to help you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Oliveras?
Thank you. It takes incredible courage to come here today. And for whomever you're representing who can't be here today, or maybe it's many people, please extend that to them as well. I understand this is very, very difficult. It's my first board meeting, so I'm sorry that I'm not up to speed on this, but I look forward to learning more. And there's never an excuse. for criminal activity.
Thank you.
Mr. Rufino?
Thank you, Mr. President. Real quick, I echo all the comments that have been made, but I just wanted to say not only thank you for being here, the treasurer hears you loud and clear, and the treasurer did took action when it was brought up to her attention. We do not know the history, and it doesn't matter. This is not about necessarily about an individual, but this is about the whole concept, the whole idea that this board needs to wrestle with. And we kind of implied it yesterday during the code of conduct discussion. Should we have something in that code of conduct that addresses this very issue? Because I don't think this very issue has been addressed that. And in general, our policy addresses the harassment and says that we should unequivocally make it clear that we have zero tolerance, period. Zero tolerance means zero. Does not mean once it's okay, twice is okay. And I think this board in particular, when we expect corporate America to clean their boardrooms, and when we expect everybody else, and we tell everybody else, and we threaten them with this big stick and saying, look, we are CalPERS and we want you to do this X, Y, Z, and then in our very own house, we accept and we tolerate and we give a free pass. The old man club. Oh, well, that's okay. That's okay. Nobody's hurt. Nobody, we are giving a pass. And this is not about one individual. This is about the bigger picture. The treasurer is committed, has been committed all of her career to zero tolerance. As a legislator, she supported and sponsored legislation with respect to domestic violence and so on and so forth. Anybody that knows her knows that she's been on the forefront in this dialogue, in this fight from day one. So this is nothing new, and that's why she took action when it was brought up to her attention and asked folks to reconsider. With that said, I just hope that as we move forward, we take not only our fiduciary responsibility, which is incredibly important, but we take all of our responsibility serious and act upon. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Ms. Lynn Paquin?
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your story with us and with the broader public. We really do appreciate it. And on behalf of the controller, we look forward to working with Ms. Taylor and the rest of the board and the staff on figuring out what we can do to put an end to this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, also want to thank you for the courage to come and share this information with us. And I too will be working with the rest of my colleagues to work on some strategies to make sure that there is a safe workplace for you, so that there's no fear of coming to work and providing the job that you would like to do. So I would also work with them on that regard. So thank you very much. Okay, so we now move to the next request from the public, Mr. Ivy Felix. And Mr. Al Darby, you can come down, you will be next.
Hello.
You will have 3 minutes, and if you would identify yourself and your organization.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. I appreciate it. I'm here. I'm a retiree of CalPERS. In 1998, I was divorced. I came in, provided all the documentation that was required to have my ex-husband removed from all of my benefits, health, medical, vision, dental, and beneficiary designee. And they removed him from the health and the vision plan, and until November of this year, when I called in to verify that my health insurance would still be affiliated with UC Davis Medical Group, I found out that he was still on my dental plan. So for over 20 years, I have been paying for him to be on my Delta dental plan. I called CalPERS. They told me to bring in a copy. They've lost a lot of documents from, I'd say, 97, 98, 99. They were not putting things into computers, so they have no copy of the divorce decree that I brought in. They have no copy of the documents that I brought in to have my husband removed from the vision plan, but he is. They removed his sons from the medical, dental, and vision plans, but they did not remove him from the dental plan. So for over 20 years, I have been paying for this man to be on a dental plan who has been remarried twice. And when I called CalPERS, I talked with William Collins, who, with the first conversation, when he told me that they were not able to refund my money because they could not find these documents that I know that I personally brought in. I rushed in when I got them to make sure that he was taken off. Those documents were not found. He hung up in my face. I've called several times. I've talked to Assemblyman McCarthy's office. I got an email from Robin Kelly, and she says, I've confirmed with CalPERS, who keeps referring me back to CalHR, and changes to employee's medical plan is submitted to CalPERS, but changes to an employee's dental plan is submitted to CalHR, and that is not true. And there are, if you look online, you can find all that information that we file whatever we need to file with CalPERS, and CalHR is the administrator. So for over 200 some odd months, they have taken money from my retirement for my ex-husband to be covered, and I'm looking for a resolution.
Okay, thank you, and I'm sure Ms. Frost will have someone talk with you about that. Okay, Mr. Darby.
Mr. Chair, board members, Al Darby, President, RPEA. Since you've elected to create an investment subcommittee, I'd like to draw your attention to a recent Boston College study that found that public pension boards that have at least one investment expert, one finance expert, and one actuarial expert can enhance investment return by as much as 125 basis points. You have that talent on this board. I hope that talent will be appointed to the subcommittee that will be involved in the detail of creating good investment policy. I'd like to make one other comment about what just took place here, and that is that I believe that the comments of the board probably are inappropriate in view of the fact that we're in the midst of an election. I also believe that since the comments have been made, Mr. Jelensik should have equal time to come up here and defend himself. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. That concludes the public comment. And before we adjourn today, I want to offer a few remarks on behalf of the entire board. I want to offer our deepest sympathy to our colleague and friend, David Miller, who recently lost his wife. David wants you to know that your CalPERS family is here for you during this difficult time. I commend you for coming here this week and so soon after your loss to participate in these meetings. So thank you very much. Okay. Mr. Miller.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just want to thank everybody for your support, your understanding. If I've been a little short, if I've been a little distracted, I beg your understanding. Some of you may or may not have met my wife. I think people who've known her remember her for different things. She was a mathematical genius with an incredible enthusiasm for mathematics. decided that it might be interesting and fun and exciting to be an actuary, so she studied and took the actuarial exam that had the highest failure rate of all to see if she could do it, passed with flying colors, and was working on the next one. So other people remember her as an artist, extraordinary artist. Other people remember her as a fashionista and a seamstress and a designer of great talent. Other people remember her as a rescuer of animals and people and anyone that needed help in rescuing. But I think everyone remembers her, and I would urge you to think in terms of her kindness. She was a kind person. And I think what I would ask is be kind. Be kind to animals. Be kind to children. Be kind to old people. Be kind to each other. Be kind to strangers. Be kind even to people who are not kind, because there's nothing more she desired. And it's a high threshold. For those of you who have known me long enough to know me before I met my wife, Danita, I did not always exemplify kindness, and I still struggle to do so. But that's the bar that I will be holding myself to, and that's what I would offer in memory of Danita. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. Okay, the next item on the agenda is this afternoon we have 2 items in closed session, one of which is an information security update and cybersecurity briefing involving staff's work to protect the system. In order to hold a closed session to consider matters posing a potential threat of criminal activity against CalPERS property or equipment, including electronic data, and where disclosure would compromise CalPERS' security, the Bagley-King Open Meeting Act requires at least 2/3 of the board to affirmatively vote in order to utilize this exception. So based on the consultation with legal office, discussions concerning CalPERS information security and cybersecurity qualifies for this closed session exemption. After the closed session, the board will briefly report out in the open session that we met under this exception and if any action was taken. So what's the pleasure of the board? I'm looking for a motion and a second, and we need 2/3 vote to do this. So moved by Mr. Fechner, second by Mr. Miller. So we will now adjourn this meeting, and we will start that closed session at 12:45. Oh, okay. Moving on, okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the item passes, and we will convene the closed session at 12:45.